So far, we've been talking about how a contract is formed, offer acceptance, consideration, or detrimental reliance. We've talked about how contracts can be assigned. There can be beneficiaries. We've also talked about how contracts can be proven and interpreted and how their terms are construed. But now we're on to what happens if there's a breach of contract, and how do you make the parties whole and solve the breach of contract in some way. So first of all, the failure to perform a contract is a breach, but the extent of the failure determines how much damages. So for example, if there's been a partial breach, or perhaps even a trivial breach, the promisee can sue, but the promisee has to perform in the meantime. They can't withhold their part of the bargain. So to take an example, let's say that I will pay you $100 if you paint my fence, and then you paint every bit of the fence except there's one little corner way in the back of my yard that I didn't quite get to. Well, that's a breach of the contract. I didn't actually paint the whole fence, but you can't withhold the entire $100 because I did most of the fence, and whatever breach there is relatively minor. And so that's considered a partial or trivial breach, and I can sue, I can get you to finish it, but I have to perform in the meantime. Or there could be a material breach where I can sue and I can suspend performance, but I can't terminate the contract. So if you paint the fence, but you paint it in the wrong color, I can sue you to repaint it in the correct color. I don't have to pay you the $100 yet, but I can't terminate the contract and go to somebody else. I have to give you a chance to what's called cure the breach by repainting it the correct color. And we'll talk about cure in a little while. Then there's the possibility of a total breach. And if there's been a total breach, then the promisee can sue, suspend performance, terminate the contract, and find someone else. So maybe I don't even show up, or you don't even show up to paint the fence. Then I can not only sue, I not only don't have to pay you, but I can also say, forget it, there's no contract, and I'm going to go get someone else to paint my fence. Now, there's also a thing called anticipatory repudiation, where the party indicates by words or actions that she will not perform in advance of the time of performance. So if I say, I'm going to pay you $100 to paint my fence on Wednesday, and you contact me on Tuesday and say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to come on Wednesday. I'm not going to be able to do this job at all. So forget it. That's called anticipatory repudiation. And in that situation, I can treat that as a total breach and go and seek alternative arrangements and potentially sue to the extent that I am harmed by your having repudiated. I can also ask for a demand for assurances. So if I am worried, reasonably worried, about whether you're going to perform, I can ask you for assurance that you actually are going to perform. Now, it can't just be that I'm nervous for no reason, but if I have some reason to think that you might not show up on Wednesday to paint my fence, I can call you on Tuesday and say, are you going to come and paint my fence on Wednesday? And if you do not give the assurance that I'm asking for, that also can be treated as anticipatory repudiation. Now, assuming there's been a breach, what are the remedies for a breach of contract? So the general remedy for breach of contract is known as expectation damages. And the idea of expectation damages is to give the party the benefit of the bargain. So if the contract had been performed, what situation would that party have been in? And that's the measure of damages. So what does that mean? That means that there might be direct damages. So that would be the difference in value between the performance a party should have received and the value of the performance that the party actually received. So that would be direct damages. Then there might be consequential damages. So those are losses that result from other transactions that are dependent upon the breached contract. For example, because you didn't come and fix my elevator, I was not able to make all of these other transactions in my building. I wasn't able to lease my property for 5 months or things like that. That would be consequential damages. And then also there could be direct costs that I had as a result, and I have to mitigate those costs. I have to try to make those costs as little as possible, but there may nevertheless be some additional costs that I might have. Now, if there's been substantial performance, the general measure of expectation damages will be the cost of replacement or completion. So to go back to my example, if you paint my fence but leave just a tiny bit at the end, then really the damages are only going to be the cost of completing the fence. And when substantial performance is done in good faith and the cost of completion would result in what's called economic waste, which is a situation in which the replacement or the completion would be disproportionate to the harm caused, then the measure of damages will be just the diminution in value. So maybe my fence with a little bit off on the side is worth, I don't know, $10 less, and so $10 would be the diminution in value. It's the difference between the value of the property as it was substantially completed and the value that the property would have had upon full performance. Now, sometimes expectation damages will be too difficult to calculate, maybe because it's too speculative to know what would have happened if the contract had been fully performed, and how much money maybe I would have made from being able to lease my apartment building had you not failed to fix my elevator, things like that. So it might be too speculative. And so if that's the case, courts might use what are called reliance damages rather than expectation damages. And reliance damages are the money damages to reward the innocent party for the losses incurred in reasonable reliance on the promise. So expectation damages gives you the benefit of the bargain and tries to put you in the position you would have been if the contract had been performed. Reliance damages tries to put you in the position you would have been in if no contract had ever been formed in the first place. There, again, you have the same duty to mitigate. So whatever harm you have faced because the contract wasn't performed correctly, you have to try to mitigate those damages. You can't take advantage of them. And if the contract would have produced a loss for the non-breaching party, then reliance damages are reduced by that amount, of course, because then the party is actually benefited from the fact that the contract didn't go forward. Now, there's also restitution. That's another remedy in contract. Restitution awards the party that didn't breach in order to repay that party for providing a benefit for the reasonable value of the benefit that was provided. So it prevents unjust enrichment by the breaching party. And there, the idea is if somebody doesn't fully perform their part of the bargain, whatever the value of the benefit that was provided needs to at least be paid. Now, what other remedies are available? Well, in addition to monetary damages, there could be what's called specific performance. So that's an order to perform the contract. It's an injunction that requires that the party actually perform the contract. That's particularly used in situations where monetary damages are really not going to solve the problem. You could also have an injunction to refrain from conduct of some sort. You may not do X, Y, and Z as the remedy for breach. You could also have what are called liquidated damages. So if the contract specifies what the damages are going to be, the damages were difficult to determine when the contract was formed, and the amount specified is reasonable, you can have those damages. So if the contract itself says what the damages will be, then you can use liquidated damages rather than expectation or reliance damages. Note that in contract cases, punitive damages, which are damages to punish a party, are not awarded. You can't get damages for what's known as emotional distress, and you can't get attorney's fees reimbursed. So those will always be paid for by each party.